Let's talk today about the 61st anniversary of Nigeria's independence, which comes around tomorrow, Friday, the 1st of October. Now, looking back, one key factor that has been identified and agreed as a major drawback for the country's rapid and inclusive socio-economic progress and development is poor governance. On the eve of the Independence Day anniversary, senior economist at SPM Professional Alaje joins me now for a discussion on governance and the economy from our Abuja studios. Paul, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate your time.
Thank you so very much for having me.
Great to have you tonight.
Happy Independence in advance.
Thank you. Tonight, 61 days ago, it was all partied, and as it were, everybody were in the mood, I'm sure. I wasn't around by then, but I saw a number of pictures of what happened that evening, the eve of the independence, the high spirits that a new country is emerging on the African continent. But first, let's talk about governance, because the parameters of good governance that can deliver socio-economic inclusive growth. What is it, by the way?
Thank you so very much once again. Quite a number of things that countries are using to measure if a country's level of governance is okay or not. One of those remain how independent is the state. When we talk about independence, I mean how secure is the country in terms of economy. Do they have economic security? They have security of life and property. And do they also can they guarantee job security? Quite a number of things that we can talk about when it comes to the governance of this space. And why do we need governance? Because of anarchy, so that non-state actors will not hold power without the people surrendering their power, to a central authority. So one of the things countries that governance is good or governance is fairly okay, there are quite a number of parameters that even World Bank has put together. One of those parameters remains what is happening to HDI, Human Development Index of such country. So on one hand, we have development to talk about. On the other hand, we have security to talk about. And when it comes to human development generally, we cannot develop a space without developing a people. Today, the recent report about Nigeria is that we dropped 3 points from 2018 to 2019 to 161st position when it comes to measuring how developed we are and the human beings in Nigerian space. So the job of government is to provide basic amenities, which we include quite a number of things. I don't want to start mentioning road, power, electricity, and all of those. But when the function of government is evident, we are going to see them in all parameters.
When we talk about governance here, Paul, I'm talking about those who are elected or put themselves forward, like in a board of directors in the corporate sector, or as shareholders or the directors on the board of a company. So those who elect themselves, whether in the public service or civil service, and say, look, I want to go and serve the people. I want to be part of those who make decisions for the rest of 200 million people. So that's the parameters for governance. So if you say you're in governance elected since we've had the first, second, and third, and fourth republic, in the middle we've got in the interregnum of a military rulership. So whoever decides and put himself or herself forward for governance, what does it really take for such individuals in office?
Well, it takes a lot, but in the case of Nigeria, we know what it means for somebody to run for elections or for somebody to put himself forward. First, there must be that desire in the heart, whether it is military or through the civil process. During the civil process, 1960, Nigeria got independence through lobbying, presentation, and so on and so forth from the founders of Nigeria state. I mean, talking about the Ahmadu Bello, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Obafemi Awolowo, just to mention a few out of hundreds of persons that fought through their intellectual capacity to get independence for Nigeria. But in 1966, we saw military intervention into the process, and it has been one military to the other, sometimes with interjection of civil rule, which never lasted till now. But what was the driving force? Unlike when we had the first civil rule, where democratic process to a large extent was meaningful and decent, what we have seen in recent time is who has money, who has influence, and who can control the people particularly money being the central game in all of this. We have not put those. Some of the things we do not understand as a people is that whosoever we are electing, particularly to elective position, so executive position, I beg your pardon, they will be making economic decisions for us. So for instance, the chief economist, quote and unquote, of Nigeria is the president of Nigeria. Yeah. You might have economic advisor, they are advisors, but who is the chief economist? The same thing applies to state, the same thing applies to local government. So invariably, we have 36 plus 1 economists, quote and unquote. We have 1 chief economist, central economist. We now have over about 774 local government who are supposed to be serving with economic decision, because they decide who gets what, when, and how. Who gets what, when, and how is purely economic decision, even though it's a definition of politics. It's purely economic decision.
So we talk about governance structure. In the corporate sector, you got a board, you got the executive board, you got the management, you have non-executive board members and what have you. The idea is to put everybody together to give a sense of direction and to deliver. What you call profits, revenue, whatever, sustainability for the company. In the case of Nigeria in 1960, those folks, individuals, leaders, put themselves forward because they believe that they can run Nigeria moving forward. So we've run 40 years of military rule up to 1999, then 1999 to date, another 20 years. So roughly 60, 61 odd years. Have we really delivered economic and business dividends to the people?
Okay, so from private sector that you mentioned, a superstar board or a leader of an organization is one that can manage human resources, material resources, and other resources, including financial resources. In 1960, Nigeria was dependent on agriculture products, and we took lead when it came to cocoa, when it came to groundnut, and so on and so forth. We have seen that even region develop in that line. Today, Nigeria, if you compare what happened in 1960, where unemployment rate was less than 15%, to what unemployment rate it is, talking about management of human beings and human resources. How many children we had out of school in 1960, and about 10 million plus people that are out of school children. Let's talk about the finances, where our exposure was near zero. Even to the 60s, getting close to 70 when we fought a war, without borrowing this huge. How have we managed our resources as an economy today? Most monies, virtually 3 trillion, 4 trillion and more is what we have to borrow on annual basis in order to finance our fiscal life, particularly at the federal and state levels. Leave that aside. When it comes to managing material resources, talking about natural resources, crude oil, and so on and so forth,
yes, Paul,
quite a number of things.
You're touching on a very important point, the management of resources. So, which is now we'll go to the material point. Stick around, everyone. Stick around, Paul Alaje. We will expand that conversation when we return. Yeah, welcome back to the show. As we examine Nigeria's independence at 61, looking into how governance has failed to deliver shared economic prosperity to Nigeria and advance the country's broad economic development. My guest, Paul Alaje, has been chatting to me on this from our Abuja studios. Paul, thank you so much. We'll take that very quick break. So my question, which you were reacting to earlier, was the 40 years of military governance up to 1999. The military and everybody else blamed Nigeria's poor economic development on the fact that the military had no structure, they were high-handed, and a whole lot of things happened. Then we've had civilian democratic governance since 1999. Have we really fared better than the military years, broadly speaking?
Well, I really don't think so. Even though when you look at the numbers, we have seen that around 2014-15, thereabout, we have seen, I think 13 and 14, we have seen human per capita income improve significantly to near $3,000 per annum. But ever since, because whatever happens to crude oil, it always reduces from time to time. It will reduce, of course, overall per capita income. While the military has the veto to implement some policies such as, say, setting up refineries and so on and so forth, because most of these policies, they have not been a foundation for them. For instance, today we have subnationals, about 36 of them, them, plus maybe FCT. But many of these, at least 30 of these subnationals, they are living on subsidy. Because without federal allocation, I can bet with you, this organization or this institution or these subnationals, properly speaking, they cannot last for 10 years to be charitable, maybe 10 years or 5 years. So how do we have institution and organization that cannot last? So while military have brought quite a number of developmental programs to Nigeria, and to be very fair on the military, most of the roads have been constructed under military because military intervene and they spent quite a lot of time also. But civilians are now trying to work around that because civilian or civil rule is a different process entirely. You have National Assembly to deal with. You also need to obey what judiciary is saying, unlike in the military rule, while the Supreme Military Council remains alpha and omega as to what can happen within the country. So economic prosperity is the major challenge Nigeria has. Recall that even in recent time, Nigeria have decided to take over the baton of poverty from India, the country that had sway for a long time. Of course, India took it from China. Today, Nigeria is still flagging it, even as we celebrate 61 years of independence.
Just going to take just one or 2 points very quickly. One of the things that if you look at every military takeover over the last 60 years, usually towards the end of the year, December or whatever, overnight, January, whatever, if you happened around April or whatever, is the fact that corruption is the blame for one of the points for removing the previous administration. And today, 20 years into civil rule or this republic, do you think we fared a whole lot better in terms of handling corruption or corrupt practices, or just a function of the more the merrier as far as corrupt practices and mismanagement of the country's natural resources is all about, that you talked about earlier?
Well, when you look at corruption perception index, the result Nigeria had is the way people perceive Nigeria is more important. But in recent time, back at home, we have seen recent energy by government, using different anti-graft organizations to ensure that corruption level is reduced significantly. What seems to be missing, however, is the process that will make it difficult for people to become corrupt in the first instance. And we hope that in the coming period, we will see that. So military leaders and coup plotters have always mentioned corruption truthfully, but even when they are there, have we not become more corrupt? Quite a number of names have been given to different military leaders in Nigeria. An unprecedented level of corruption has also happened during military regime. So for all we can see is an economy that generated up to 1 trillion naira from crude oil from 1970 to 2020. The question is, where is the wealth of the nation that we have generated in times, and this is dollars, by the way, yes. Where is the wealth of Nigeria, and how can we trace all of these funds that have entered this economy?
Mismanagement, fiscal irresponsibility. The whole idea, my point is this, Paul, how can we address this? This is the problem with the institutions of governance or with individuals who go into office saying they're representing the rest and they can deliver roads, healthcare, hospitals, security and whatever, and they failed.
Predominant culture, and when I say culture, I don't mean people coming from a village, but predominant economic culture of people around corridor of power. And I'm not talking of current administration or past administration. I'm even talking of people who have interest in going to or wants to run for office. It is my turn. Let me make as much as I can right now and can the rest so that nobody have access to it. So when you hear people say they want to run for office, even among Nigerians, when somebody that they know is in office, they start sending all manner of requests so that it can grant their selfish requests. And the question is, where will the money come from? So you are from president to governors to senators to federal honorable, local government. Everybody is putting burden, and they also expect that community will give to them, community will demand from them. But look at it during election, how they spend money during election, particularly on election day. We have seen quite a number of videos on social media of people have been given from a cup of rice to 5,000 naira. Those days, during the 60 elections, 60 and 70s, what we used to know is how people stock, single notes in bread and so on and so forth. Today, for somebody to run for president under the ruling party, how much will he require? It will take somebody on minimum wage over over 60 years to work without spending from his salary. On the major opposition, it will take perhaps about 30 years to run to save this live money in order for the person to run. The question is, we have monetized our election process, and it's making it difficult for the best, who might not be the richest, who might not be financially rich, to take position.
We've monetized governance and infused corruption and mismanagement into it. I have an issue. So my final question, and we have 60 seconds. Do you think we have a list of what needs to change on the governance score at 61 moving forward?
We have a lot to change when it comes to list of governance. First, we cannot continue to have people lead us based on where they come from, based on the zone they come from, based on their religion or what they believe in. When somebody leads us aright and gives us economic miracle through their policies and implementation of those, it will be evident in total number of people that get jobs, total number of companies that are established, and money politics will not be what will deliver this to us. So by how means, Nigeria, we need to endure the pains when it comes to any election to choose and to ask ourselves sincere question. Will this person be able to deliver economy for us, and in his own space or our own space, what has he or she done before to deliver economic prosperity that is promising?
This conversation is happening tonight.
Please, very importantly, media, we need to go beyond.
Okay, Paul, we need to go now. Thank you so much for your insights on the show tonight. Paul Alaje, senior economist at SPM Professional.